So when it comes to designing your website, we see that when we're writing HTML code, it really is just about making containers and having these different elements for our content and being able to break it apart and represent it as we want it represented within our viewable area of our web content. So we had a whole bunch of paragraphs, we had some headings, and this is more of a way that users can come and consume that content and practice and make sure that it flows really well and utilize all the different available elements within HTML to really present that content in a digestible fashion for the user. So we see here that we've got, if we had a number of pages here, we've got a home and about. We can also go to different sections of the current page. We've got links out to other useful resources that would be relevant to the content that the user might want to check out as they're reading this. And this is the whole idea of adding in content, designing around what you want to present to your users. So think about, if you were a user, how you would want your content represented and work within that fashion. So work backwards from there. Also take a look around your favorite websites and make note of just different ways that they're representing and showing this content. So you're probably looking at this and saying, okay, well, what if I want to really divide up these paragraphs? And there is another way to divide these up as well. Or what if I wanted to add in some kind of styling to here, or if I want to add in an anchor and I don't want to break up the way the content flows within the paragraph. So there are ways of doing that. And this is where divs and spans come in. So divs can typically be used for something like, so we would have a div here, opening and closing, and the content between the two div tags is this would break apart that content. And we see there is some formatting with a div as well. So if we had a number of divs next to each other and we had a bunch of content here, we could see that, I'm going to do a few more so that we can get a better idea. We see that typically what happens with a div is it takes up that whole line of available space. So it takes up the whole block of available space, and if we have another div, it starts below that. So this is our way of actually breaking apart the content in a more digestible fashion. And if we had a whole bunch of different sections, so if I'm just going to add in maybe another one down here, and this was another section, and so on, we could really begin to see how we can break these up. So I'm going to do the closing one here first, and then I'm going to add in. So always remember opening and closing of the different divs. So that's proper structure. And I'm going to do something really quick here with CSS, where I'm going to add in a div, and I'm going to add in a one-pick border, solid black, so that we can see, we can actually distinguish between the different divs. So now we see that we've got all of our content is nicely sectioned off. And now let's say we wanted to link, so just as we set up these anchors up here, maybe we wanted to link to an important part. Maybe we have some area where we've got, or how about contact? So contact would be good. So contact would be something that a user typically might want to be able to see right away. And add in a line break there. Should do that lowercase. So let's save that, tidy that up, and now we can see that we've got two different anchors. So let's say we've got our contact information, but it's somewhere within the content here. So, and yes, of course, if you had contact information, you might want to really split it up. So maybe we have our phone number, and so I'm just going to make up something that looks somewhat like a phone number down here, but I don't want to really use anybody's phone number, so we'll just leave it something like that. Or email us at. So we had something like this, and we want to distinguish this from the rest of the content area. So we have our contact information, and yes, typically you would make a whole section for it, or a whole page for that, because this is really important. But just for the demonstration purposes, if you have contact up here and you don't want to keep rewriting your contact information, there is a way to isolate out this piece of content, and this is where we'd use spans. So spans work inline as opposed to divs that create the blocks. So opening and closing spans. And really at the root of it, spans don't really do anything. There's going to be no difference in the formatting. We see absolutely nothing different. But we now have a way to add in an attribute where we could do an ID and equal it to contact. So now when someone hits our contact hyperlink, they're brought down to our contact information right away. So much like as we had brought them down to that important section 1, we can also bring them down to the contact area. And then this way, we don't have to repeat content. So contact probably isn't a typical way to use it, but this is something that you would see used fairly often within websites to really highlight and bring people to different pieces of content. And especially if you're designing a one-page website, this is going to be an important factor in getting your users to be able to scroll down to these particular isolated pieces of content really quickly. So scrolling their entire browser down in the visible area of their browser. And one other thing that I did want to add in, so typically with your contact information, if you've got an email, so you might want to link out to that email. So you can do this as well with the hyperlink. So I'm going to just do the href and I'm going to equal it to. So I'm going to show you how to do this. And close off that hyperlink, so it's going to look like a hyperlink, but we do have ways to do it specifically for email addresses. So right now it's not going to go to anything, but if I do a mail to, and then here I would have that email address that we're mailing out to, and we can also include something like a subject. So this will automatically populate the subject field. So maybe if we want to send a message from the website and so on. So what will happen here when they click the link, this will automatically try to open the user's web mail client. So this is something to keep in mind when you've got email addresses. It's always a good idea to link to the user's default mail client that's set up within the browser. So you click this, and instead of actually trying to go to a web address, it's going to open up that mail client and allows the user to save some steps whenever they want to email out. So they don't have to copy and paste it in to their mail client. It'll automatically open that up. So really nice feature and something to keep in mind when you are adding those email addresses. Always think to make it easy for the user to do important things within your website. So if they need to communicate with you, then make it easy for web users to be able to initiate that communication to you. And also keeping in mind, a lot of your web users might be coming to your website on a mobile device. So just like we set up our mail to, we can also do a specific hyperlink to a phone number. And this will automatically open up. Just as the mail client opens up, we can open up the phone system on a mobile device to this particular phone number. And the syntax for that is TEL. Just like we have mail to, we have TEL to indicate that this is a phone number. And now whenever the user clicks this, it's going to open up their phone provider. And if you have a phone client on your desktop, then it'll try to open that up as well. So if you click it, it'll try to open up Skype if it doesn't find anything else on your system.